obviously better than where we were to start this process.
Right.
You have a lot of excessive movement of this right arm in one way or the other. I mean, you can see in your setup how close your elbows start,
Right.
which is fine. But as you get to impact, then they are fairly separated out as you're hitting the golf ball. I mean, and that's going to be this right arm basically doing this. As that right arm does that, that's an effort to try to close the face.
Right.
And as the grip is in a different position now, and you're trying to then close the face, you're probably going to likely bottom out behind the golf ball or start a little left. All of this is headed in the right direction, but as I was watching that little rehearsal that you were doing, is this it? Yeah, so the movement of the arms, let's show you here. The movement of the arms in this feel is correct, but because of that wrist position where it's really cupped,
Right.
that flip is going to kick back in. So we have to teach you how to move the arms in that pattern while you're turning your wrist in the correct direction. Otherwise, you're just going to keep taking that right arm as a closing motion. Let me grab the club here. So as you're, so there you go. All we're going to start with today is real short shots, right? Start with this neutral position, hinge the club back to that right wrist, and then see if you can't maintain those wrist bends all the way through.
Right.
What ends up happening is as you get to the top of the swing, it feels like it's more closed, but because of the forearm rotation at the top, the face is actually pretty open. And then as you drop it down, it feels even more open to you. And you're not in a bad position here, but then you take this right arm and you go that way.
Right.
Right.
Subconsciously, I feel it's open, so I'm trying.
Well, and if you were to lead, because that wrist is actually still a little bit cupped compared to what we want, if you were to lead with your hands, you would start closing you start leaving the face too open. So again, this ball is going low and left, right? Because that face is now excessively shut. Right, but you can see as you do that, there's that right arm much more passive,
Right.
versus that right arm kind of rotated out. Let's see if we can't, as you're doing that, let's see what's going on. Yeah, it's better with the arms there. So now the right elbow is much more in front, the left wrist is flatter, that club face is a little bit too close there.
Right.
But that's okay. Let's see. All cylinders. So from the top of the swing, you're going to see that right elbow pull back in front of the pivot. So there's that right elbow much more in front.
Right.
Club face in the same position, but you're getting there with the left wrist in a flatter position. And then if we look at impact, so there's the impact position we're trying to create. Right, weight more forward, hands more ahead. And again, the other aspect is where the club is actually bottoming out at.
Right.
Getting those hands more forward will shallow the angle into the golf ball. You're probably going to lose the angle a little bit into the follow through, but you'll see your arms much more extended. So nice and easy, let's put a golf ball, stop in those three positions, right? So 1 back, 2 twist the wrist, 3 try to hit that punching motion on the way through.
You know, and I've never really cared a whole lot about having a lot of power in golf, but now that I'm seeing how I was swinging with so much flip and stuff, first of all, my driver, obviously, my launch angle was super high because I'd flip it and hook it. And even when I hit it good, I would hit it kind of high. But I was always able to throw like a baseball, like pretty far. So I always assumed that was a similar motion. So I was like, why can't I hit a golf ball far if I can throw a baseball?
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Look at your spine as you come into impact, how it curls more forward, right? As you get better at doing some of this stuff, you'll start to see the spine will work much the other way, where it starts to go actually in this direction as you're going through. And that has to do with, what you're doing with your hands and arms through the bottom of the swing. But with that being said, this last one that you did, even though the ball went to the left, that's closer to what we want to see there at impact. You see your elbows aren't as separated. That left arm is a lot straighter. That left wrist is a lot flatter.
Right.
And again, as you're doing just this little motion, the understanding of how the club is supposed to work is improving, right? This is a relatively simple swing here. If we just add a little bit more hip turn, that would be the top of the swing. So you're kind of eliminating that excess of wrist motion that you're doing at the top that's creating a lot of that loop to the swing. Of this angle this is your first swing on the left. Right, any amount of that angle that we can increase in your swing, and the more we can keep those elbows from separating out, the better you're going to strike the golf ball, and the more consistent it'll be. And again, we may be overdoing the wrist and the grip a little bit right now for your style, but let's encourage you to make the better golf swing. That's why when we first met, you may start hooking the ball more with some of these, but there needs to be an incentive for you to get the hands forward.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to create. So that was good.
Yeah. And that's the sensation that I've
So the elbows are staying closer, the left arm is staying straighter, the right wrist is staying bent back. And you can actually see that your left wrist is returning almost to the same position it was at address.
Right.
You don't need to feel that motion with the wrist this way at all, because we're actually trying to get the ball to start to the right, not start to the left. So let's see that on a golf ball. That looked great. If you watch this practice swing here, as you're doing the drill, there's none of that lay down. And eventually we'll teach you how to continue the club on plane to the top instead of, this is part of what opens the face. As you go back, you kind of go this way, and there's a lot of this forearm rotation, so then in the downswing you have to do the opposite.
Right.
So it's really keeping this shaft much more vertical. An extreme version of that would be if you've ever seen Matthew Wolf swing a golf club, where he actually gets that shaft almost the opposite way, and then it goes this way versus you're going kind of that way too much. So love that position there. Love the downswing, how the club just naturally kind of falls. So if you can create, as you're doing this and we're working on this, if you can create a little bit more rotation to the top. Right now I just want you doing this drill, because if you watch the downswing, the big difference between these two is where that club face is at and how it got there. So elbows working more behind you, elbows a little bit more in front of you. Let's go one more frame. Right, and that club face is more closed, so that's going to allow you to keep your body rotating, keep the hands forward, and not flip the club so much, because that all goes hand in hand, versus right here the body's going to kind of stop rotating and you're going to flip your hands over a little more. So club face a little more closed, club face a little more open. Look at the face on view. Should have, this is the drill, should have a little more turn into the follow through here. And just a little bit more. Don't see your left shoulder as much when the arms are parallel. That'll all go hand in hand with how the face rotates through. A good visual for that would be just this kind of Dustin Johnson face on iron into the follow through. How his left hand is almost still visible into the follow through here, and how open his chest is.
Right.
You look very, very similar to that position right there. Lots of tilt, lots of turn, and just a minimal amount of rotation in your forearms. But I can tell, based off of where your right shoulder is, for how much more your shoulders are starting to open up, your hips are starting to open up, and that's all just because the arms are moving back in front of the body just a little bit faster there from the top of the swing. So good stuff.
Yeah.